Welcome to A Magical Life, Health, Wealth and Weight Loss. I'm your host, Magic BARCLAY, lead practitioner at Holistic Natural Health Australia and #1 best-selling author. In this podcast, I aim to give you practical tips on how to accelerate and sustain your health, increase your financial, spiritual and emotional wealth, and to look at something that haunts many of us needlessly, weight loss. In some episodes, I'll have guests available to give you even more tips, but in others, the floor is yours. Drop us a line at A Magical Life Podcast on Facebook and let me know what you would like to know more about. Now, sit back and enjoy, because it is time for you to create and truly discover a magical life. Welcome back to A Magical Life. I'm your host, Magic BARCLAY, and I'm again joined by Nicole Laurent. Welcome back, Nicole.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for rejoining us. Now, in our last episode, we answered, the general questions that I ask everyone, but I've got some really in-depth ones now. And maybe the listeners, everyone's heard of keto, but maybe they don't know just how important protein and fats are in our diet. Can you just explain the importance of keto? And maybe for those that have experienced it and not done well, what are their options?
So protein, my goodness, protein is so important for your health, which is such a general thing to say, but I can't find a better way to kind of communicate it. So if we talk about it just from the standpoint of mood and cognitive functioning, because, I'm into brains and that's kind of what my focus is, although the health of your brain is an indicator of the health of your body and those mirror each other for sure. You cannot make your neurotransmitters without adequate amino acids, period. And so I've literally had clients who do not have nutritious whole foods diets, keto or otherwise, of course. And all we do is we add amino acids and their depression lifts, like they were eating maybe 30, 40 grams of protein a day or something like that. And we find that the access to the amino acids, their brain can then make serotonin and do a lot of other great things. Fat, if you want a healthy brain, your brain is made from fat. And you need healthy fats in order to make your hormones. You need healthy fats in order to maintain your brain. And so fat is fantastic for structural reasons, but it's also an amazing fuel source, whether it's coming from your dietary fat or from the burning of your body fat. So protein and fat are really the only two essential macronutrients. Carbohydrates are actually considered a non-essential macronutrient, and your liver will make all of that substrate that certain parts of your body needs. There's actually no need to ingest dietary carbohydrates, and people have a really hard time believing that or understanding that, but I promise it's true. I would never tell you that and have you, drop dead because you didn't have any carbohydrates. So how important are they? They are essential macronutrients, and you will literally die without them. And so they do absolutely need to be prioritized.
Fantastic. Now, I have myself developed an autoimmune in my brain, and that's cerebellar ataxia. And having been on a keto diet, I found it helped a little. What else for other people who are dealing with a progressive condition, what else can they do to stop brain inflammation and really get their power back?
Right. So autoimmune issues are tricky. Sometimes when we do ketogenic diets for autoimmune issues, whether it's Hashimoto's or like what you were dealing with, I'm sure that getting rid of the gluten and the grains was helpful for sure. But what we often will restrict a little bit more, and I say restrict hesitantly because that's a dirty word in eating disorder circles for sure, but we will restrict foods that tend to cause more autoimmune reactions. And so sometimes that will just be taking out the eggs and the dairy and doing more of an autoimmune type protocol to help with that. And so usually, we see a lot of improvement in immune system function with a ketogenic diet. It does seem to be able to help balance the immune system. But again, I feel like there is this area of untapped potential in functional medicine that when we put the two together, a ketogenic diet with our knowledge around functional medicine, it can be really quite powerful. And so I would wonder, you should ask the question with the nutrigenomic lens of, do I have any SNPs that mean I need extra micronutrients that someone else next to me might not need, but I do because of my genetic SNPs? Do I need a particular form of B vitamins? Do I need more zinc or magnesium? Do I have inefficient pathways that mean I need extra glutathione precursors so that my ketogenic diet that already will upregulate my glutathione production and make more than someone who isn't on a ketogenic diet? Do I need more precursors so that my body can make as much glutathione as it possibly wants and needs? Do I need to hit those micronutrients hard in order to assist with my healing? So there's that piece where the nutrigenomics piece with a ketogenic diet, I think, can be quite helpful, even for people with autoimmune issues. And some people have autoimmune issues that they feel part of it is, their gut health and that sort of thing. And I just got done going to the Metabolic Health Summit. It's a big conference. I didn't get to go. I went virtually, but I got to hear a lot of researchers. And one of the researchers was a gut microbiome expert. And she was talking about how a ketogenic diet changed the gut microbiome in a favorable manner. Now, we're still learning about gut microbiomes. We don't know all the things. It's very complicated, but we do have a general idea of, we want some more of this particular bacteria, and we see a lot of chronic illness with this other particular bacteria. We think we might want less of that. So that's kind of the state of the science, in my understanding. But she was talking about how they found that it really changes the gut microbiome in a favorable manner in as little as 4 days. And it's just completely different 14 days after a ketogenic diet. And so someone with an autoimmune issue where they feel like leaky gut is part of that piece for them, ketogenic diets can be really helpful. And then I think that the third component is always functional medicine sleuthing. Is there something going on that is taxing the system that's getting in the way of your healing of the symptoms that you're aware of, right? So is there heavy metal toxicity that is built up? Is there mold exposure, a past mold exposure or continued mold exposure? Is there a parasite causing inflammation that's continuing that neuroinflammation? So functional medicine really has a lot to offer us in terms of trying to figure out our health. And so a ketogenic diet with functional medicine, I think, is a fantastic duo.
That's quite informative. Thank you. Now, many people maybe are scared of the unknown, scared of taking things out of their diet, making that leap to really clean up what they put into their bodies. What are some easy steps that you offer people that really need to start that cleanup?
Yeah. So in my brain fog recovery program, we actually take 4 weeks to transition into a ketogenic diet. And so those small steps and working towards that is actually going to improve sustainability. But for someone who's not even attempting a ketogenic diet, but is just simply trying to help themselves clean up their diet, the first thing, these are probably all things that your guests have said in the past, but the first thing is, for goodness sakes, please don't buy things in the middle shelves at the grocery store, at least how the grocery stores are here. All the processed foods and the packaged foods, they're all in the middle shelves of the grocery store, and all the fresher foods are on the outside aisles. And so start to really focus on that. For some people, an understanding that the oils that they use to create shelf life are highly inflammatory to different disorders and brains and bodies, the gut, and that they want to avoid those. And then, of course, start to get rid of sugar out of your diet and pay attention to the ratios in your diet. I have all my people track their food on Chronometer so that we can kind of see what those ratios are, because of course we're doing a powerful metabolic diet for the brain and we want to make sure that ketones are being made. But really, there's people who probably, 60% of their caloric intake is highly processed carbohydrates or very high carbohydrate foods like, really high mangoes and fruits, because we're wired to want that sweet taste. And I completely get it. But that means other things are getting pushed out. That means they're likely not getting enough protein, which we talked about is super important. And it's likely they're not getting enough fat, or they're certainly not getting enough healthy fats. And so starting to kind of pay attention to that. And don't be afraid to find a good, reputable, functional nutrition person who can send you off to someone who can help with your nutrition. I always tell people, a good, healthy brain diet, something that's a good thing to shoot for might be a paleo diet, or generally a paleo diet, because there's just less refined carbohydrates. So getting those refined carbohydrates out is absolutely the number one thing.
And is there anything else that you feel the listeners need to hear to improve their cognitive development and their cognitive health?
Well, I feel like what I'm about to say, your listeners probably already intuitively know, because people know, people are smart. And that is, if you have mood and cognitive symptoms like brain fog, for example, or that sort of thing, and this might be a controversial thing to say, there is really no help for you in mainstream medicine that I've ever seen, heard, or experienced. Often people will have brain fog and they will go to their practitioner and they'll be like, I'm a little debilitated by this brain fog. I'm going to need some help with this. And they're told, don't worry about it. It's going to pass. It's just a part of your disease. You just have to live with it. It's part of having Hashimoto's, or it's part of having something else. And these are people going to primary care physicians, neurologists, autoimmune specialists, all kinds of things. And they're not getting any help with that piece. And I think that it's important for people to be honest with themselves when they get to the point when they actually realize that there isn't any help for them there. And I think that it's really important that they don't accept that. And I think it's really important that they start to trust themselves and trust their intuition and trust that there are people out there that have different ways of healing things and different ways of looking at how their body works that can help them heal, and to just not give up. Your healing is out there. That's what I want your listeners to know.
That's so true. And, really, listeners, not just hear that, but feel that, understand that, and implement that the healing is there for you. Now, Nicole, people can find you on Twitter at Keto Counselor, Facebook, That Keto Counselor, Instagram, Mental Health Keto, and Reddit as N Laurent. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the listeners before we wrap up?
Just that you do not have to live with brain fog, regardless of reason or diagnosis. There are really powerful interventions, both dietary and supplements and with functional medicine, that we can do to treat those symptoms right now, so you can absolutely live your best life and thrive and be emotionally, physically, and spiritually present for yourself and those in your life.
True. So true. Thank you so much for joining us again, Nicole.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Listeners, this was your episode 187. In 188, Laura Hale is talking about manifestation and your inner wisdom. For now, thank you for your time. Go forth and create your magical life. Thanks for listening today. Please subscribe to hear future episodes, leave a review, and share this podcast. You can follow us on Facebook at A Magical Life Podcast or at Holistic Natural Health Australia. That's holistic with a W. You can find us on Instagram at Holistic Natural Health or at www.holisticnaturalhealth.com.au. That's where you'll access all sorts of articles, freebies, and more.